All right, everybody, welcome back to the Forward Podcast. I know it's been a minute. My guest today is Governor John Hickenlooper from at one point in his life being a geologist, losing his job in the oil and gas industry, to starting a successful brew pub, to running for mayor of Denver, winning that election, 2 terms as mayor of Denver, and then on to governor of Colorado, this cool state. He is now running for president of the United States. Fascinating discussion. I want to get it out there and say it that because it seems that the political climate is so heated now, and so before everybody starts hating, I try to stay as apolitical and ask questions in an apolitical way as possible. I think Hick is. I will disclose he's a friend of mine, but that doesn't mean we don't get to ask some tougher questions. So fascinating discussion. Truly a moderate candidate. Give it a listen. Don't judge. Don't be grinding on me for having a Democrat on. I'd love to have a Republican on. So also while I got you, please be sure to not miss the daily coverage of the Tour de France on The Move. We're so proud of all the work that's been going on there and the success that the show has had. And hey, the Tour de France, we haven't seen a tour this exciting in many, many years. So we got 1 week left. Check that one out. That one's The Move. Any questions, comments, concerns, issues? No, well, not comments or concerns or issues, but send us a note at, where should we send it, JB? The Move at wedo.team? Send it to the Move at wedo.team. Thanks for tuning in. Governor, thanks for being here.
Hey, what a treat.
I want to get real serious real quick.
Okay.
How were the raconteurs last night?
Oh, my God. They were, you have your expectations in music as in life. They went beyond every reasonable expectation. And especially, Jack White was doing things and showing invention on the guitar that just seemed so fresh. It was old metal rock and roll, and yet so fresh, so new.
Of all of his, let's call them acts, right? Whether it's the White Stripes,
his projects,
White Stripes, his own music. I mean, to me, the raconteurs are far and away the best. I mean, that's as far as my taste goes. And I've seen them once before, and obviously he's a savant, total genius. Have you seen It Might Get Loud?
No.
So it's a music documentary with Jack White, The Edge from U2, and Jimmy Page.
Wow. And
it starts with this, the opening scene is him, Jack White, making a guitar out of like a shoebox or something. I mean, and he starts to play it. And it's at his farm in Tennessee, at least it seems. I mean, it is, you see this guy and you're like, that guy is a genius.
He's doing things his own way everywhere. Everything he does is fresh.
Yeah, I suggest you, and I've probably talked about that documentary 10 times in these podcasts, but you should check it out.
I will.
Download it in all your travels. I know you're traveling a lot. But your story is, and I've known this story just from reading about you and having been good friends with Governor Bill Ritter, your predecessor, and this story of essentially owning a brew pub.
Yeah.
In downtown Denver.
The first brew pub in the Rocky Mountains, the 12th brew pub in America. Just so we're clear, I'm not bragging.
I heard it was the first in Colorado.
Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing. Now there's probably 10,000 of them.
Well, it took 2 years to raise the money because no one knew what it was. My own mother wouldn't invest, and the rent was $1 a square foot per year in lower downtown Denver, right? So across the street from the train station.
Wow, Union Station. Which is now like hotter than a $2 pistol.
Yeah.
I mean that you can't get rent there for. Who knows? But the part of the story that I didn't know is what brought you to Colorado, what brought you to Denver, which is actually our mutual friend Mike Freeze told me this on a bike ride yesterday. But I didn't know anything about the oil and gas deal, being a geologist. I was like, what? I thought he drank beer and served beer and was a brewmaster.
Well, what was weird? And so I grew up outside Philly. My mom was widowed twice before she turned 40, and she never complained. She was the toughest, most resilient person I ever knew. And she'd tell us that you can't control what life throws at you, but you can control how you respond. Or does it make you stronger or weaker, better or worse? And I came out as a geologist. I had a master's. I had a company car. I thought I'd be a geologist my whole life. Came out to Colorado in 1981 And then the commodities prices all collapsed in the mid-'80s. There was a sustained recession. And our company got sold. I mean, literally hundreds of companies got sold. They estimate 8,000 or 10,000 geologists lost their jobs in about a 5-year period. So not only was everyone getting laid off, but no one was hiring. So it meant that I lost not just my job, but I lost my profession. Yeah. And it's a lot of what all those people that supported Donald Trump, all the people in the Midwest, when we kind of, through automation and globalization, a lot of those manufacturing jobs, in whether it was automotive or wherever, they all got outsourced, and people lost not just their job, but they lost their profession. And it's weird. After, even if you're a pretty confident person, after 7 or 8 months of trying stuff and thinking it through and reframing your options, you begin to lose a little confidence. You see a different person in the mirror.
Right. And so then that's what led you to the brew pub.
Yeah, I was lucky. I got a couple buddies. We took out a book. Remember, I was a geologist, so I took out a book on how to write a business plan. I didn't know what a pro forma was, and we just kind of pieced it together. That's part of the reason it took so long to get investors, because we really didn't know what we were doing when we first started.
Yeah. And you grew up in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I grew up outside Philadelphia.
Who was your father when you were very young?
Yeah, he got sick when I was 5, and it was my mother's second husband. That was the tough part. That it was. And he was a good.
So not your biological father.
No, he was my she was married once to a pilot in World War II and had 2 kids, and he died right at the end of the war. Then after a couple of years, she moved in with her parents with the 2 kids, and then after a couple of years, she met my dad, and he courted her. She kept saying, "No, you don't want my 2 kids." And he said, "Yeah, I do." And they finally got married, had 2 more kids. I was the baby, and then after about 5 years, she got cancer. And they didn't know how to deal with cancer in those days.
Back then, it was a complete death sentence.
Yeah, they'd go in. He had 3 major operations in about 2 years, and what really was the toughest thing was that they didn't have anything for the infections. Mm-hmm. So they had penicillin, but that's it. That was the only antibiotic. So after the 3rd operation, I'll tell you, one of the greatest gifts my mother said she ever got was from a woman named Agnes Dixon, who was one of her best friends, coming over once or twice a week to have coffee. And she saw my mother doing laundry, because every night my father would wake up with cold sweats because he had all these infections. And so 2 or 3 times a night, my mother would halfway roll him over, unroll the sweaty sheet under him, put a clean sheet down, roll him back on the clean sheet, take the rest of the sweaty sheet, get him into a clean sheets. And so every day she's doing laundry like crazy. And Agnes Dixon saw this, asked her what was going on. My mom explained it. And the next day, a linen service showed up. And for the last 7 months of my father's life, my mother never had to do any laundry. And she said her whole life, because she didn't ask for it, it was just the greatest gift anybody ever gave her.
And you remember that as a
yeah, oh sure. That those last couple of years, he would stay in his bedroom pretty much. And in those days, they kept the kids away. I'm not sure why. If I was
Well, there was all these
sick
misconceptions about cancer. You hear them all. I mean, it's contagious. It's
right.
Et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it was crazy. I mean, obviously we've come a long ways, thank God. But to lose it, I don't know. I mean, I have an 8-year-old daughter. I mean, if I were to leave or to die or to pass, I mean, she'd be a mess. I mean, it'd be tough.
It was that first couple years after he died, I was just a mess. I was bullied. I was always the loudmouth. For whatever reason, I guess my dad was sick, so my mom put me in school a year early. So I was, when I went to kindergarten, I was 4 instead of 5. So when I was in 3rd grade, I was 7 instead of 8. And, I was just a loudmouth. I was just trying to make kids like me.
Yeah.
But I became the butt of the jokes. And my poor mother she made a chart for me. At the end of every day, I'd come home, and the chart would have all these categories like, did you say something mean but behind somebody's back? Or did you make fun of somebody on the playground? Did you, all these things, I'd get a gold star, silver star, or a purple star. But it made me conscious of, stop being such an asshole.
There you go. That was good. 8 years old is a good age to learn to not be an asshole. It took me probably 30 years longer than that to figure out, just being a complete dickhead just doesn't work. But at some point in life, it smacks you around enough, you figure it out.
Yeah. It made me empathetic in the end.
Yeah.
It made me intensely sensitive to people that were being teased or marginalized in any way.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I never thought about it. I was never involved in student politics. I never ran for, student council or anything. But it is part of what eventually got me into running for office, was that sense of not just empathy, but your ability to help somebody who's being kind of tormented or pushed.
And dyslexic.
And I was dyslexic. Except back then they didn't know. They just thought
you couldn't read.
I was so slow. Yeah. They just thought I was lazy, that I wouldn't spend the time. And it turns out, of course, that was true too. I was, like any good high school kid, I was lazy. But I was just a very, very slow reader. And you're also, most dyslexics, and I was just moderately dyslexic. Most dyslexics also have a little bit of ADHD, attention deficit.
Sure.
Which, if you think about it, that's God's cruelest trick. Is he says, first, I'm going to make you a slow reader. And then to make sure you never finish a book, I'm going to give you a short attention span. Good luck.
You start thinking about our mutual friend Pam Alexander, I believe, is in that category as well. She's sitting. I'll edit that out, Pam. I promise. And then, this has only happened a couple of times when I've done these podcasts, and as I'm studying people like you, and I learn about your life and learn about your family, and et cetera, et cetera, I then learned that you have also prosopagnosia. Right. I've never heard this word in my life, ever.
Well,
and I'm like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, its common name is face blindness, and I just always thought that I didn't pay enough attention. But you and I let's say I could meet your brother was here, and we spent 3 hours talking and having an amazing conversation. The next day I would see him in Starbucks. I would never recognize him. And even
really,
yeah, absolutely. And even celebrities, if their hair's a little different or something wrong, I couldn't recognize them. When I watch movies, if they're two blonde actresses, two in the same movie, and their hair isn't sufficiently different, I couldn't tell them apart. I mean, and then I go in the restaurant business. Right, so.
Oh no.
I end up.
Some guy thinks he's your best friend.
Well, but what happens is you wait and you look at when you greet someone, you look at whether they recognize you, and you dial up your warmth to reflect what they're giving to you, and it's amazing. It works 99% of the time, where they will, if they come really close and come kind of right towards you, you can go ahead and you can tell whether you're supposed to give them a hug or not, or whether you're just supposed to give them a pat on the shoulder. But generally, people always reveal within 20 seconds that, oh, it was so great when I saw you last month at Carl Federer's house or whatever,
Right.
There are ways to get through it, and I look at it as kind of part of the secret of my success, just like dyslexia. Dyslexia, you learn to absorb information in different ways. You learn differently than other people, right, which gives you an extra tool in your toolbox.
Extra weapon. Well, that's what the best do. Unfortunately, not everybody has the skills or the.
Yeah, but most people learn differently. I mean, they don't all do
reprogram.
Well. But the face blindness just makes you more friendly.
Yeah.
What's the downside to that? To go through life a little more friendly than everybody else?
No, there's nothing. So you alluded to this a second ago, that you weren't in the student council or any political-esque stuff in school, and then you lose your job you actually lose your career as a geologist, and then a brew pub you have, but the first, to me, as I'm reading your life story here, or trying to put it all together, it seems to me like your first political-esque idea or thing was this campaign to not allow Mile High Stadium to be essentially bought, right, or sold, like most stadiums, AT&T Field or whatever in Dallas, and all these other big stadiums. You didn't want Mile High Stadium to be called Invesco Stadium,
right?
Which I thought I was like, every stadium has a sponsor. I'm so curious as to why.
Well, see, but I'm older than you, and I'm old enough to remember when no stadiums had sponsors, and the stadiums became reservoirs of shared emotion and these experiences. And Mile High Stadium especially, Mile High Stadium had the south end of the stadium was so loud, and when the Broncos would make a defensive stand, or Elway would be driving at the in the final minute, and the place you just couldn't even hear yourself think. That shared experience, I mean, it's part of what makes professional sports so powerful. Is the collective joy in victory is so powerful, and when your team's defeated, there's also some mitigation. It's the disappointment is lessened because it's shared with all these other fans.
Right.
And when you have a name to the stadium, like at Mile High, it was Mile High Stadium. People
cherished that, and the taxpayers were paying for the new stadium. No one told them they were going to sell the name, and so I just thought, hey, there should be some pathway for us to protest. And so I went around the bar. There was one of my customers would occasionally do political polls. I didn't even know what a political poll was, but he said, for a couple grand, I'll throw 2 questions in the next time I do a poll for the whole metropolitan region.
And what year is this?
So this is 1998, I think.
Okay, so not
98.
Not that long ago.
Yeah, end of 1998, and so I put in $500, and some other guys around the bar all chip in, and we put a couple questions in, such as, would you be willing to pay, and it was 24 cents a year for the next 16 years to keep the name Mile High Stadium on our beloved new football field? And people will not say they're in favor of any tax,
right,
almost for anything. 70% of the people said we want to pay that tax.
Okay.
And so all of a sudden we show up and we decide we're going to call a press conference. So we put these card tables out in front of the old Mile High Stadium, and we put a little logo on it and hang the sheets over it and everything. And we call this press conference. We thought we'd get a big crowd. Nobody came except the 4 TV stations, the 4 channels, and the 2 newspapers and the alternative newspaper. And they all came, and we were the front page. We were with the lead story. And for 2 or 3 days, everyone talked about it, and then it went away. No one gave it. The stadium district authority continued on their process of selling it. And what happened was it wasn't until 6 months later, and this buddy of mine, Andrew Hudson, he was kind of did the communications for Mayor Wellington Webb, who was the mayor of Denver at the time, and Mayor Webb had supported the vote to pass a tax increase to build the stadium because it was going to be in the center of Denver. Most of the suburban regions, the mayors had been against it because it was in downtown, and there was this kind of rivalry. And the governor at the time was a Republican, and he'd been against the tax. Well, they get halfway through building this new football stadium, and they're going to give a tour. The most popular TV station, most widely watched, was Channel 9, and then Channel 9 is going to walk their viewers through the half-completed stadium. I think it was going to be in maybe 9 months out or something. Anyway, they pick the governor to be the tour guide because he's the governor and kind of outranks the mayor. And the mayor was the one who supported the tax, and he's furious. So he calls his friend Andrew Hudson. He says, "Who's that Hicken? What was that guy's name? Hicken something? Hey, get him. He wanted to fight the. Get him on the phone. Can he be in my office on next Tuesday?" And the next thing I know, I'm in the mayor's office. It's jammed with people. There's 18, video cameras and all these journalists. And the mayor gets up, and I realize how he could capture the moment. He gets up and says, "Some things shouldn't be for sale," and he gives a speech, and everything stopped. I mean, again, front page. Rick Riley wrote about it on his, The Life of Riley on the back of Sports Illustrated. He lived in Denver, so he said people should find the Hickenlooper inside them. I mean, people all over America should find.
You know where Rick Riley lives now?
Yeah, down in Laguna,
Italy.
In Italy?
Italy.
That's unjust. That's unjust.
One of America's greatest sports writers.
I thought he was living in Southern California.
But he may be back. I know he did it. For whatever reason, one day he woke up and he said, "I want to learn to speak Italian."
He is a smart guy and an interesting guy.
And so he moved to Tuscany, and I think in Florence. And but maybe he's back. I haven't talked to him in a couple of years.
I'm going to send him an email now just because you
ask him if he's still in Italy.
Anyway, after the whole Mile High Stadium, we got a compromise. It became Invesco Field at Mile High.
Right.
We're the first city ever to get a compromise. And that guy, Andrew Hudson, about a couple months after the dust settled, comes up to me and says, Mayor Webb is term limited, and in 2 years he's not going to be able to run, and you should think about running for mayor. And I looked him right in the eye and I said, why would I ever do that? Right? Why would anyone do that?
Yeah. Get a real job.
Yeah, get a real job. My God.
No, but it had as I was reading through it, I was like, that was the spark, just like that sort of rallying people and standing for a cause. I mean, that's what the best politicians are supposed to do.
Well, and it's also a lot of what, as an entrepreneur, I got 35 investors to take a little risk on some money in this old abandoned warehouse to create a brew pub, a restaurant that brewed its own beer. I mean, my mother said, why would anyone want to have dinner in a brewery? I said, no, Mom, it's like a bakery. It's fresh. It's fragrant. In the end, an entrepreneur brings people together, assesses risk and reward, and creates a team and goes forward with this mission. It's very similar to politics in a funny way. I mean, that's kind of how when I went into politics, I wanted to take an entrepreneurial
approach to solving the big challenges of the community.
Mm-hmm. And your father was a good friend of Kurt Vonnegut. Went to college with Kurt Vonnegut.
Yeah, they were buddies at Cornell University, although the funny thing about Kurt Vonnegut never made a nickel from selling his literature until he was 49 years old, which is so interesting. And when he did Slaughterhouse 5, I think came out in 1969, that was the first time you ever had any book that really made money. So when we were kids, again, my dad got sick pretty quick, and Kurt Vonnegut wasn't out there as even an author in any way. Right. So my mom never knew that my dad knew Kurt Vonnegut. It was a good friend that he'd just never met. So I was 45, and I would do a special beer label and do a special beer for this art gallery in Denver. They had Ralph Steadman, who did all the covers of Hunter Thompson.
Exactly.
So
know him well.
So we did a
famous figure here in Aspen.
He's amazing.
Yes.
We did a beer label called Steadman Stout, and we brewed a special beer for him, and we just had a blast. And so 6 months later, the art gallery owner calls up and says, "Hey, you want to do one for Kurt Vonnegut?" I said, "Yeah, I've read everything he ever wrote. I'd do it in a second." And sure enough, 3 weeks later, my phone rings, and is this John Hickenlooper? This is Kurt Vonnegut. Before we talk beer, tell me what happened to my friend from Cornell, John Hickenlooper. You have the same name. And I said, "Well, I'm a junior. I never use it, but I'm a junior, and that was my dad." And so we became friends, and I'd go. He had a house out in Sagaponack at the end of Long Island, and I'd go there for Fourth of July weekends. And he would tell. I learned more about my dad from Kurt Vonnegut than I did from most of my family.
Right.
And it was just this weird. And what are the chances I would have gotten? I mean, he did these silk screens about the characters from his books, and he only had one show at that one gallery. And to my knowledge, that's the only gallery that has ever gone to a brewery to do special beers for art shows. What are the chances that we would connect?
Slim
at best.
Slim. So at one point, he gives you some advice. He says to you, "Be very careful who you pretend to be, because that's who you're going to be."
Yeah. So I was talking about, I learned in the restaurant business. So we opened the Wine Coop, and like anybody, I worked 70 and 80 hours a week. No different than training for a bike race.
I hope not. I hope that's a lot more than most people do. But anyways, it's a lot.
It was a bunch, and when it finally kind of took off, I realized as it became more intense that if I was in a cranky mood, soon my bartenders, my line cooks would all be cranky. And so I learned to look in the mirror in the vestibule just before I go into the restaurant, and I'd put a smile on my face. I remember Bob Fosse and all that jazz. He'd always make a little face and say, "It's showtime." And I'd go in there and I'd pretend to be happy. And I was talking to Kurt Vonnegut, and I said, it's funny. Most days, within a couple hours, I'd be happy. I'd become happy. And he looked at me and he says, "Well, that's one of the great lessons of life, is on a larger scale, that happens day in and day out. And you have to be careful who you pretend to be, because that's who you're going to become."
Wow.
It's good life lesson.
Man,
he also, when I tried to get him to endorse me when I decided to run for mayor in 2003, and I called him up. He could be a curmudgeon. I mean, people are always asking him for stuff. And I call him up and I say, "Kurt, I'm going to run for mayor. I'm going to bring the approach of an entrepreneur to solving society's problems, and risk versus reward, and get Republicans and Democrats, businesses and nonprofits, everyone to work together." And he goes, "John, that's great, but you asked me to endorse you. If I endorse you, I have to endorse everyone. I have to talk to all these people. Oh my God, what I would." I said, "Kurt, it's fine. It was just an idea. Don't worry about it. No problem."
Yeah.
The next day, and he didn't like email. For a long time, he wouldn't use email. But the next day, I got a fax, which he loved to communicate on faxes. And I get a fax saying, "I don't believe in endorsements. I believe in hope. I hope John Hickenlooper is the next mayor of Denver." And signed it, Kurt Vonnegut. So I put these on little bookmarks, and I got a bunch of volunteers on, to hand them out at libraries all over Denver, especially on weekends, because that's when most people end up going to libraries. There'd be big crowds going in and out. And it was like one of the smartest things I ever did, because if you're going to a Denver public library, you're registered to vote in Denver, and people that read books generally have a higher probability of voting. So we decided it was a very high yield maneuver.
No, I think that was great. I think that was great. That was genius.
It was all from Vonnegut.
These days they'd be concocting some Instagram scheme so you could reach people. But
well, now these days you got to figure out exactly. You got to figure out what are the new ways of doing something that's fresh.
Sure.
When I went to Wesleyan University in Connecticut, and there was a writing teacher there named Paul Horgan, and he walked into class one day, and this is as true of life as it is of writing. It's as true today as it was then. But he walked into class and he said, "Everything has been said, but not everything has been said superbly. And even if it had, everything must be said freshly again and again." Mm-hmm. And so, especially if you were a writer, everything has been said, or not everything has been said. Or let's see, everything has been said, but not everything has been said superbly. So there's frontier out there. You can still write things superbly that no one else has ever written.
Yeah.
But even if they had all been written, everything's got to be done again freshly, which is so inspiring, right?
Yeah.
Which just makes it hard if you're trying to figure out how to use Instagrams to get political attention.
It just drives me crazy. I can't figure it out. But let's talk about the 2016 election campaign, the whole thing.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of stuff out there, and I think both of these are super interesting to me because I guess I in a way know both of these people. There was talk that you were on a very short list to be Hillary Clinton's pick to be her vice presidential running mate.
Yep.
Now, I also come from a school that doesn't believe anything that I read. So let's just set the record straight. That was the case?
Yeah. So I was down to the last 3 or 4, and you go through this you give them everything, baby pictures, whatever, everything about your life, tax records, everything that could possibly ever come up in a campaign, which means pretty much everything.
Right.
And they go through it, and then you go through this. Literally, it was a 5.5, almost, I guess it was 6-hour interview with 5 super talented. These are like $1,000 an hour lawyers who are all donating their time. They donate their time for these vetting processes, and it was wild. I'll tell you a funny thing. I had loaned money to a woman. Her husband dropped dead of a heart attack. Very great tragedy, and her 2 kids were in school with my son Teddy, and they were great friends. And I at that time was divorced, and the house next to my ex-wife was up for sale. And we knew the guy the neighbor, and this woman who was a widow with 2 kids was renting, but she had some life insurance, but she didn't have enough income yet to qualify for a mortgage. So I put in $10,000 and co-signed on the loan, and the agreement she'd buy me out in 3 years when she got her feet under her. She was getting a teaching degree. So we do that, and she buys me out, and everything's great. So I'm being vetted. And they look at me and they go, "So who's this woman, Meryl Flockhurst?"
That you put up.
And why exactly did you help buy? Why did you buy her a house? And I was like, no, you have to understand, this is my son's best friend, and his father died. And I was trying to do a favor. And it was like, yeah, can you prove that? How could we? It was everything in your life was open to review.
Right, and we're going to get to this in just a second because you're now, forget VP. We're talking, top dog. So, but I want to get to that in just a second. And then, so the other thing that I really found interesting, and I've never really spent a lot of time with John Kasich. I've talked to him on the phone quite a few times. Interesting guy.
Yeah.
There was this talk of almost like a unified ticket.
Unity ticket.
A unity ticket.
People called it.
And with Kasich as running for president and you as vice president.
Well, I always thought that his name would be better under my name, but we never quite got that resolved.
Yeah. Which alphabetical order, I guess.
Yeah. He is he was the chair of the House Budget Committee in 1994. So, he's been around politics and knows, he wanted to be a politician his whole life. He's almost the opposite of me. I never ran for anything until I was 49.
Right.
But we balanced each other great. And he was the one, I went to him after Donald Trump became president because Trump and the Republicans wanted to dismantle
after he became president or after he got the nomination?
No, after he became president. Okay. He came in and was going to dismantle the Affordable Care Act. And Governor Kasich in Ohio had expanded Medicaid just like we had in Colorado. And he clearly saw that, A, it was good for the economy, B, it was great for the workforce and therefore good for the economy. And it also gave poor people a chance to better themselves because they got health care. They didn't have, that wasn't one more thing they had to worry about in terms of trying to build their lives. So I went to him. It took me a while to find him because he had resigned for various reasons from the National Governors Association. But he agreed to come and be my public partner in both of us, two governors, saying we're the ones who implement health care plans. You senators are great at writing about it. You guys are great waving your arms. You're thinkers and dreamers. We're the doers. And we say you shouldn't go back. And in the end, John McCain, the day before he voted against dismantling the Affordable Care Act, he said we should look to the governors. And they're the ones who really deal directly with this. And we should take direction from the governors.
Yeah.
And that was directly talking to Kasich and myself.
At one point, he reached out to me. John Kasich did. And I was shocked that he was, I knew who he was. He had run for president and was the governor of Ohio. And and he said to me, and this is not that long, it's probably 2 years ago. He said, Lance, I've always been a big fan, and we all make mistakes, and I hate that this has happened to you. I want to help. I want to help figure out a way that you can rebuild your life and move forward. And he clearly was a big fan, but was not paying attention to what's going on like right here. And so he's like, I'm gonna just ask some of my smartest staff, and I'm gonna call you back in a week. And like a month goes by, phone rings, Governor Kasich. And he said, Lance, he said, I asked all these people, like, what can we do to help this guy play offense again? And they started telling me, you have all these podcasts that has millions of followers and that you're doing this. He's like, you don't need me. It was crazy. I was like, well, thanks a lot, Gov. I'll talk to you later. But it was a sweet gesture, but it was so funny. Like, he had no idea that we are sitting here doing this and millions of people are out there listening and watching and tuning in. And it was cool. He's a good dude.
Well, he's focused. He's a real policy wonk.
Yep.
And so he's in a little bit in a bubble, so he wouldn't be aware of a
No, I didn't fault him at all. No, God.
Yeah.
Hey, I got another fan out of him. But so when he's a moderate, right? It's fair to say he's a moderate Republican. Most would call you a moderate Democrat. So that M word, right? That's my question here is, because America to me just seems so. It's not hostile, but it's close. And so, when something's hostile, it just gets polarized to the left and to the right strongly. And so, how can somebody, and this is where we get to what you want to do now, which is be the president of the United States. Can a moderate, at any level, but specifically to the president, can they win? Is that possible?
Oh, I think absolutely. I think you got to figure out how to message what it is you're selling, just like anything, no different than how you market this podcast or yourself to a certain extent. And I look at what we've done in Colorado over the last 15 or 20 years. I was the mayor of Denver for 8 years, and it went from being kind of a backwater flyover town to being, for the last 12 years, one of the fastest growing cities in America.
It's a great city.
Yeah, we transformed, got over 1,000 miles of bike trails, more live music venues in Austin or Nashville. All this stuff that we.
Whoa.
Yeah, fact.
More than Austin,
yeah,
Texas.
Yeah.
Austin tells us that that's the live music capital of the world.
And they have a right to say whatever they want. But the bottom line is the Westward, the alternative newspaper in Denver, is owned by the same company that owns the alternative newspaper in Austin and in Nashville. Yeah, the Chronicle. And so they went out and they each got a reporter to go and count and go and list every place that has live music 4 nights a week. And Denver won by 3. I think it was 87 to 84 to 82. So anyway, I'm not bragging. It's not, what did Ernie Banks used to say? It's not bragging if you can do it.
Yeah.
So, but I looked at that, how we did it, and in Colorado, for the last 3 years when I got elected, for the last 3 years we're the number 1 economy in the country according to U.S. News and World Report. When I got elected, we were 40th in job creation, and really struggling, and we did it by going to every county and creating a business plan in every county and not leaving the rural counties behind. We'll be the first state in America to have broadband in every city and town by the end of next year. We give tax incentives for small businesses to start up in rural parts of the state. We have actually we have the number 1 rural economy for last year. And that's what the country needs. The country needs to kind of kickstart itself and not go to these massive expansions of government. Medicare for all, to expect that you're going to have 180 million Americans give up their private insurance, which most of them want to hold on to. It's just not going to happen. And in Colorado, we got the near universal health care coverage. Without that massive expansion, I think if you put together a public option, let people who want to go choose to get to be able to get to Medicare on a sliding scale. If it's really good and people go there and it grows and the quality improves, the costs come down, then more people are attracted to it. It grows and the quality improves, the costs come down. Ultimately, you'll get to Medicare for all, but it'll be an evolution rather than a revolution. Mm-hmm. And I look at almost every policy issue like that. We've done it in Colorado. And the way we did it would work nationally. So I keep telling, when I was on the debate stage with all those other Democrats, I kept saying, well, I'm the one guy up here who's actually done what everyone else is just talking about.
And I had heard, and you can confirm if this is true or not, but that as governor, as a Democrat, a Democrat in the state of Colorado, your approval rating amongst Republicans, as it was told to me, was 69%.
It wasn't quite that high, but it was up there. It was probably, I think moderates was about 69 or 70, but Republicans I was above 50, right, which is unheard of.
Which I think is, people need to hear that. I mean, that's what you want. You don't want. I mean, I can't even take the news cycle and the competitiveness of CNN versus Fox, and it's just. We do a cool thing at our house where we, especially with, during the last election, is we mostly watch CNN, right? I mean, just full admission. But as this thing was getting nastier and nastier, I would make the kids, as we're sitting at the dinner table or wherever, we'd do 5 minutes of CNN, 5 minutes of Fox, 5 minutes of CNN, 5 minutes of Fox. Because you can't just, it's
so smart.
Crazy to see the differences. And you can get so bought into one channel and narrative, but one click away, and it is completely different.
No. And there used to be something called the fairness doctrine, which meant in this country, TV stations, because it's such a persuasive, hot medium, that they would have to show of any politics they put on there. If it wasn't just the basic news, they'd have to show an equal amount of time of conservative interpretation as liberal interpretation. Right. And they got rid of that, I think, in 1997. What I love about Colorado, we didn't worry about whether someone was a Republican or a Democrat. We didn't demonize businesses. We made businesses part of the solution with nonprofits and universities and foundations. And when we got the rural part of the state really cooking, it started about 4 years ago. And now, part of my strategy, the only way somebody in a flyover state like Colorado is going to win is if I can do really well in Iowa. And I got a bunch of these farmers who I become great friends with who want to go out and campaign in Iowa for me. And they want to go and say, here's what Hickenlooper did in Colorado. Here's what he could do for Iowa. Imagine what he could do for the country. Mm-hmm. And there's this one guy, have you ever seen Noosa yogurt? So it's a great yogurt. Yeah. Noosa, Noosa yogurt. There's a guy.
I'm not a big yogurt guy. I probably should be.
It's pretty darn good.
Okay.
Anyway, Rob Graves, 5th generation dairy farmer in Colorado, Republican his whole life. I mean, most of these guys are all Republicans, and I'm amazed because I go up there. I went to Brush, Colorado, for the 4th of July parade this year. This last week, and in Brush, it's 4,000 people, I think. And there's more than that people. I think there's almost that many people in the parade and almost that many people watching the parade. But all these guys are so grateful that not just myself, but my administration, all of us spend a lot of time going out and trying to listen in the rural parts of the state of how can we make you an actual, active, integral part of our economy.
Yeah. Can you ride a bike 50 miles?
Sure.
Okay, I'm no political advisor or strategist or any of the above, but if I were you, and Iowa, as I understand, is that important, right? Legitimately important.
It is the big kahuna.
So and I don't know if you've heard of RAGBRAI or not.
You mean the Registers ride across?
Annual Great Bike Ride across Iowa.
Yeah, annual Great Bike Ride across Colorado.
And there's
Iowa.
It fluctuates, and there's a lot of bandits that just jump in for the day, et cetera, et cetera. I would pick a day, and we're talking 30 to 40,000 cyclists every day for 7 days. It is the craziest. It's like Bike-a-Palooza. And you see everything from people on skateboards to high wheelers to unicycles to mountain bikes to.
Do you ever go?
I go every year.
Oh, no kidding.
Every year.
Well, maybe you'll let me ride with you. I'll go.
Well, I'm not going this year, but that's a longer story.
He changed his tune very quickly.
No.
Back to the audience, and
Yeah, this dang podcast that we're doing about the Tour de France just keeps us confined here, and most importantly, you can't get data. You can't our show takes so much data to upload
Right.
and stream live. Iowa, for whatever reason, they got like these crazy, like they don't have Verizon and AT&T.
They don't have broadband in every city
They
and town
got.
like
Let me
Colorado
tell you
does.
something. They don't have smoke signals. So we can't do the show. It's just really difficult.
Well, I am going to Ragbri this year.
You need to. I'm so glad you said
and
that.
wait to hear this. So, and this is one
Because
of those.
let me tell you something. None of those other 25 people running, can ride a bike. Cory Booker might be able to now that he's lost some weight, but they're not going to be a Ragbri.
Yeah,
That'll be amazing.
And each year they have a big concert, right? It's kind of at the middle level of Ragbri. They get
They have a lot of music, but they have one very famous act that comes every year, and their name is, and I just love this because I grew up a little white trash kid in Plano, Texas, and I listened to The Crew and to Poison, all this crap, and Van Halen, and so they have one band called Hairball.
Yeah.
Have you heard of Hairball?
I've heard of it. I don't know. I've
So
never
they
heard of it.
cover these old songs that I grew up listening to perfectly. And they've got a rotating core of like 5 singers that get dressed up like, if they play a Journey song, they dress just like Steve Perry. If they play a Motley Crue song, the dude comes out, he looks just like Vince Neil. And there is 20,000 people out in the crowd. It is crazy. So if you can catch a night with Hairball, I'm really starting to show my true self here. But
Well, one of their big concerts this year is going to be Big Head Todd and the Monsters from Colorado.
Wow.
Who are old buddies.
Perfect.
They wrote some of their songs playing pool in the pool hall of my old brew pub, and so I'm going to figure out some way to convince them that I need to play a little banjo on stage with them.
yeah.
That's my goal.
I think, and just that image of, I mean, you know how this works. I mean, it's your job to, to the people that are standing around you see that image, but that's the way it works in this day and age, and it's your responsibility, the team's responsibility to, to put that image out to the world. But that would be such a cool, that people would love it. They would love it.
Well, and part of politics today is celebrity, right? And how do you become a celebrity, and what's that look like? And part of it's if you can play an instrument and doing it in a unexpected circumstance like Ragbri, I think is something along those lines.
Yeah.
We just got to keep looking for those opportunities.
But it hasn't been easy. I mean, this first of all, I don't know why anybody would want to be president. Full disclosure.
Yeah.
Like just that interview process with Hillary's team, I would have been sitting there going, okay, I'm tapping out. Like this is subject myself to this, my family to this, my friends, my neighbors, my brain. I mean, but I get it.
There's a great poem by a woman named Marge Piercy called "To Be of Use," and you should check it out. And it is short. I'm tempted to pull it out and read it, but it's very short. But it describes the joy of the job worth doing well done. Mm-hmm. And I think at a certain point, I mean, I'm doing this not because I want to, live in the White House or I want to be famous. I actually kind of hate the idea of being famous, but I do look at the fact that I was an entrepreneur. I was out of work for 2 years. I know what that feels like. I mean, I know it. I put together teams and built restaurants. I put together teams and built a city. I put a team together and helped rebuild a state economically. And I think that I'm the one. I mean, it sounds weird. I'm stuttering, but I feel like there's almost a weird beam of light that's saying, maybe you're not supposed to win, but you're supposed to be in this campaign and lay out a vision of a different way of doing politics.
Yeah. But as I alluded to earlier, there's been some shakeup.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and then I think it's just so, you see it all the time. I mean, your stuff is a big headline here in the state when a team member gets replaced or a couple of them.
I switched all the top people.
Right.
Because I wanted to reboot it. Just like, when I was in business, sometimes you don't have the right team. It doesn't mean they're bad or they're not working hard or whatever. It's just not right.
Right. At
and
the right
these
time.
are some of the most talented people I've ever worked with. But at that moment, in that circumstance, I needed fresh blood. I'm sure in bike racing, sometimes it's like a team. You get used to the people you're riding with, but at a certain point, you need fresh blood. And,
Absolutely.
I mean, and sometimes it's just the chemistry, how it fits into the moment.
And how quickly, when you have a shakeup like that, how quickly can you tell if it worked or is working?
So I had a 2.5-hour phone meeting this morning, an hour and a half yesterday, and a big part of it is, I'm a person. I mean, nobody ever wakes up in the morning and thinks, well, some people do, but thinks I'm going to be president, or I'm that good, or I'm,
you kind of grow into it over a period of time. And we've been trying to sell my record in Colorado, that almost universal healthcare coverage, first purple state to pass universal background checks for gun safety. I mean, all these things we've done, reduced teenage abortion by 64%, one after another. But that's not what people have an appetite for right now, and they're not. I think it's important to them, but it's not enough to get them to shift where they want to go.
Yeah, because this is to my point a second ago. I mean, we're living in this time where everybody's yelling.
Right.
It's just screaming. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like, look at you people. Settle the fuck down for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And stop yelling. Like, and let's have a rational conversation as a citizen, as a parent, as a. It's just yeah. I mean, it's Governor. It's very noble.
Well, it's not just noble. It's fun, and it's also.
Well, you seem like you're having fun.
Yeah, no, I wake up every morning ready to jump into action. When we 5 years ago, there's an organization called the Environmental Defense Fund. And the guy who runs that was a guy named Fred Krupp, is a guy named Fred Krupp, and he talked to me I should take on methane. Methane is 25 to 40 times worse than CO2 for climate change, and yet oil and gas companies, manufacturing companies, they're venting it, they're flaring it, they don't care about it. Mm-hmm. And so it's a long story, but I ended up sitting down with a bunch of the leadership of some of the big oil companies and oil field service companies. And I said, you guys are going to have to come to grips with this. And the one CEO looks at me and goes, well, I'd do that, but your environmental friends would lard it up with a bunch of red tape. We'd spend millions of dollars. It wouldn't actually make the air cleaner, and we'd get no credit. Mm-hmm. I looked at him. I said, is that really the issue? And so I called up this guy, Fred Krupp, at the Environmental Defense Fund, and said, can I make it lean and make sure every dollar counts? Will you guys share credit? And he goes, of course. And so with as little a shift of that, I also had to drink a little sip of frac fluid so that they trust me. It wasn't real frac fluid. It was like a prototype with all food additives. So it was, just like right. Drinking kind of liquid glycerin.
And you support fracking.
I don't support fracking. Frack is what it is. It's like saying you support.
But you're a geologist.
Driving a car.
People hate on things all the time.
Yeah.
But they're not like I get hate on whatever. But if I'm not a doctor, I shouldn't be talking. I'm Lance Armstrong. I'm nobody. Like it. But a geologist probably has a slightly different view of what technically speaking, logistically speaking, what happens.
Well, people mostly hate fracking because they hate oil and gas, and they want to transition to a clean economy as quick as possible.
Great.
As do I.
Great.
I got a master's in geology. I buy into climate change. I got the greatest sense of urgency that a person can have. But fracking is not the issue.
Okay. Well, let me just read you this quote. So the New York Times asked you, this really is very powerful and sums up exactly what you just said. The New York Times asked you, do you think it's possible for the next president to stop climate change? And your answer, the next president is going to be the last person who has a chance to stop climate change when it will still matter.
True.
Think about that. I mean, for the listener, just think about that. The last person while it matters. I mean, that gives me chills.
Yeah, well, it's what we did with methane is a perfect model for what the country should do. Canada's rolling out our methane regulations right now across Canada. People are all fighting over fracking. We got to go way past that if we're going to get to a green economy. We've got to figure out how to deal with heavy industry. There's all kinds of CO2 pollution coming from that. How we're going to get to electric vehicles. We got to get stations, recharging stations, all over the country. And in
if
real
you want to drive from here down to Denver, I mean, where are
you going to stop?
You better figure it out.
You got a bad battery, where are you going to get recharged?
Yeah.
We did, with the Volkswagen diesel fraud, remember that? The diesel,
sure.
Volkswagen and they had to pay huge reparations.
Huge.
And so we took 2/3 or 3/4 of the money we got for those reparations and said, we're going to put it towards building along our interstates some vehicle rapid recharging stations for electric vehicles. And so I called up my buddy, the Republican governor of Utah, Gary Herbert. I said, hey, you don't want to be left out. Don't you want tourists to go across Colorado and then into Utah to get to California? And he goes, yeah, I guess so. And I said, well, here's what we're doing. He says, yeah, we'll do that. And then I called up Governor Bullock up in Montana and said, would you use some of your money and do stations? He goes, of course, yeah, we'll do that. And he's a Democrat. That was easy. But then I called up Governor Meade in Wyoming. And that's just immediately north of Colorado.
Right.
And so I told Governor Meade, for people trying to get to Yellowstone Park, do you want them to drive across Colorado, up Utah, and across Montana and come down from the north? or you want them just to drive right up through? And Wyoming has more natural gas and coal and carbon energy than anywhere. They're the most pro-carbon state probably in the country. Yeah. But Matt Mead thought about it for a day, and they called up and said, "Yep, we're in. We'll put it on our recharging stations." And that's what's got to happen. Republicans and Democrats have got to work together to build these networks and these collaborations to address climate change in real time. And most of the anger and the yelling at people is not going to get us there. And demonizing business isn't going to get us there. Mm-hmm. Business has to be convinced in real time how they can solve this problem without ruining their business. Yep. Yep. And it's doable. Yep. I think we've got plans ready to go.
Yep. And what do you say to the person that says, that John Hickenlooper, he's flip-flopped on the death penalty. He's flip-flopped on marijuana. This is what they would say.
It's what they say. Well, I didn't flip-flop on marijuana. It's funny, I did a meeting this morning, and a woman came up and said, "I loved what you did in marijuana. Mm. You were against it. You voted against it. But when the people passed it, you said that's what the people want, and we're going to do everything we can to see if it can work." And now, 5 years later, it clearly is better than the old system, and I think we have to admit that. Mm-hmm. I was wrong. I mean, if you get a new set of facts, I was against it because I was worried about the risk that there'd be a spike in teenage consumption or a spike in people driving while.
Well, I think that's legit. That's.
But it hasn't happened. We do a survey of 24,000 people every 2 years. There's been no spike. So it's a better system than the old one. We sent hundreds of thousands, millions of kids to prison, made them felons. And the same thing with the death penalty. My whole life I was an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth guy. I thought that was part of the Bible, right? Turns out it's only in the Old Testament. It's not in anything that has to do with Jesus or the New Testament. And I think more powerfully than that, it's not a deterrent. The states that got rid of the death penalty 40 years ago don't see any increases of violent crime or heinous crimes. It's incredibly expensive with all the appeals. Yep. It drags the family members of the victims through the worst experience of their lives again and again for all these appeal systems. And most importantly, it is biased. In other words, if you happen to be black and you commit this crime in the wrong community, a district attorney will decide it's going to be the death penalty for political purposes. And that is something that no American should want to accept.
Yeah, I read this article about you on Business Insider, and this is what you said. You said, I don't know about you, but when I get new facts, I'll change my opinion. I think that's completely fair.
Yeah.
I mean, if you don't have the facts and you're presented the facts and you're shown the numbers of what litigation like that would cost and et cetera, versus putting somebody in prison for life. I mean, we do that all the time. But in these debates, right? I don't know where you stand, but look, the whole thing with Biden and the busing and I find it really hard to go be critical of what somebody thought 40 years ago. I just don't think that's fair. Yeah. I think you grow up, you get older, you get wiser, you meet more people, you understand their lives better, and you change your mind. Hello. We're not robots. Right. We're humans. And so John, I completely support you in that.
Well, the trick with and this is interesting if you think about it, all the skills you need to become elected president aren't necessarily very good for a president to have. In other words, debating is not about getting to a better place. Debating is about winning, about putting that person down, even if it's something they said 40 years ago. If you can get traction with that, you got to go for it.
Well, we saw it.
Right, you saw it. Exactly.
Saw it happen.
Senator Harris picked up 6 points in 24 hours.
$2 million in 24 hours, or in 48 hours. I mean, it was astonishing.
And here I am grinding out, making phone call after phone call.
Hey, and talking to goofs like me. But so how can the people listening to this show going, you know what, this dude sounds reasonable. How can I help? That's what they're saying. I'm saying it for them.
So our goal, and I want to keep this vision of collaborative solutions that bring people together and actually move the ball down the field. People call it moderate, but I think these are progressive solutions. They're actually making our communities safer and educating our kids better and creating more skills for young people to get the jobs of the future. All this stuff I think is not moderate. I think it's pragmatic but progressive. Anyway, I want to make sure on the debate stage in September, I've qualified for the July debates, but in September you're going to need 130,000 donors, small donors mostly. And so
people could send you $1.
Yeah, $1, $2, $5. Go to hickenlooper.com. It takes you 3 or 4 minutes. And if enough people go and get their friends to go, I gotta figure out how to make it viral. If I get enough people to go online, go to hickenlooper.com and give $2, I'll be on that stage. And I believe with time, if people keep hearing that message that I'm the only guy who's actually done what everyone else is just talking about, right? We've actually done it in Colorado, and we can show how it would work nationally. I think I'm still optimistic. I think I can still win Iowa.
You know what was viral? You know what was like the craziest, the most viral thing I've heard in a long time? Was the bookmark. I think you need the bookmark. You need the Vonnegut quote on the bookmark. I mean, that was back then when people went to the library.
No, but I need something like that.
That's it. You gotta. And when you said it earlier, I didn't want. I wanted to say it later in the show. I nearly blurted it out. You need to do that now. Like that's, if we could, that lightning in a bottle, or whatever that expression is. You got to repeat the bookmark.
Right. And I've been lucky enough to have those moments come, and it feels like just as long as I keep working, and it goes back to my mother saying that you can't control what life throws at you, but you can control how you respond.
Yeah.
I just got to keep working, and there's on YouTube you can go to this wonderful video of Kurt Vonnegut pretending to be my father.
I didn't open it. I saw it.
It is so funny.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things that, again, that was lightning in a bottle. I was getting roasted by a nonprofit in Denver, and someone there knew that I knew Vonnegut, and they called him up. They found out how to get a hold of him. They got him to go down to the public television studios in New York City, and videotape this 5-minute where in the end he goes, why was it that man who was so colorless, you thought was your father, how could he be so colorless when you have so much personality? John, that man was not your father. John, I am your father. I mean, it's hilarious, and it's not useful in terms of running a political campaign, but I need something like that.
Right.
That is magic.
I'm glad they caught him on a good day where he wasn't too grumpy.
Yeah,
I'm not going down any studio.
Well, he was simultaneously, like many of us, could at one moment be cranky and just cranky.
Others are crankier more often than some.
Exactly. That's my point. He was both. Often the most gracious person.
And what's the deadline in September? September 1st?
Well, no, we got to get people signed up by the end of August. That's when they make. So I think it's August 28th. So
that's
we're working on it. We're making funny, stupid TV ads. We're going to try and figure out what's it take for someone to actually forward something to a friend.
Yeah.
Right, and that's what it's got to be. It's got to be good enough and entertaining enough that people want to repeat it.
Yeah.
And then it's got to compel them to part with $2.
Yep. Okay.
Or $1.
And let's assume that you get the nomination to run for president.
Yeah.
Your VP pick is a female?
Given the environment, almost certainly. I mean, it would have to be a female, and it would have to be somebody.
Watching these debates, if some guy gets the and doesn't pick one of these badass women,
they'd be a fool.
We got a problem.
Well, they'd be a fool.
Yeah,
they'd just be a fool. So, and obviously, anytime you pick a VP, when Hillary was vetting people, you're looking for who could be president. If suddenly there's an accident somehow, and you're no longer on the planet. Who could step in and be the president, but also who adds value to what you want to do.
Sure.
And those are, again, different skills in campaigning.
Yeah. Top priority as president?
I think climate change has to be at the top of any thing that you talk about. But in terms of what people desire, and for them is most immediate, is healthcare. Universal coverage, and then some way to get your arms around this inflation, right? Look at the copays that go up and the costs that go up for your insurance. We have to re-regulate the insurance industry because they are twisting it to their advantage. We got to get the hospitals to be transparent, so you can see if you're taking your kid to get a tonsillectomy, you're going to see what the cost is and what your copay is at the clinic versus the hospital. How good is their quality? So you can make informed decisions.
Yep.
That's how you control costs. And more importantly, we've got to get people healthy. Right? Outdoor recreation.
I'll tell you something.
In Colorado, we are the center for outdoor recreation, and if I get elected, I am going to make outdoor recreation the center of my economic development movement, because not only do you create jobs, and most of these the guys who make widgets that go on a backpack, or a Framus that holds the backpack up, I'm just making those words up,
Right.
but
They were sexy words. Keep going.
those little businesses don't want to be in big cities, and we've got plenty of jobs in big cities. Those outdoor recreation small companies want to be in smaller towns and often rural areas. Why don't we give them incentives and subsidize them and help promote outdoor recreation in the urban areas and the suburban areas, and make sure we have more parks and more bike trails and get people active? Because not only do we create the jobs for the industry, but by getting people active, we create the greatest control on healthcare inflation that we could ever imagine.
Well, this is one. We just don't think about that, and we don't think about the storm that's coming. When you think about how fat America is getting, how unhealthy they're getting, their habits, that whether it's the food or whatever habit, the burden on the system. We think we have it bad now.
Yeah.
Gov. I mean, in 10, 20, 30 years, we can't catch up.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's just going to drop like a bomb.
Colorado is the thinnest state. We're not the healthiest. We're almost the healthiest, but we are the thinnest state, and we've been that for 20 years. And it's largely because so many people come out here to hike. They decide they like it and they stay. So I can't claim that we're doing anything especially right.
Well, you're blessed with.
We're blessed with
what
we
look out and see. I mean, these beautiful mountains and streams and
a lot of opportunity.
Yeah.
But there is also this sense that you could look back 20 years ago and you look at the obesity rate in the population 20 years ago. So last year we were the thinnest, or this year now we are the thinnest state. If you go back 20 years ago, we would have been the fattest state. So the whole spectrum is moving towards gaining weight and becoming obese.
Right. Primarily, yeah. It starts in the southeast and it literally spreads like a cancer across the country.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was surprised when I watched the debates, and it was the first debate where they went, like they do at the very end, when you're president, name your biggest concern, right? And so climate change was, I would have thought all of them said climate change. The vast majority said China.
Yeah.
And I was like, damn, what's going on? Like, what am I missing here? Like, China.
What?
I mean, I don't know if it's because of the economy or the workforce or technology
it's a tariff war. And the tariff war called into question. And I think it is the most important aspect of being president is your role as commander-in-chief and, in charge of the safety and security, not just of the country, but to a large extent the world. And, I'll tell you the first thing that I would never do and nobody should do is disregard the advice of the most skilled and experienced military and intelligence officers in the world.
Right.
Second thing I wouldn't do is denigrate and alienate our closest allies. But at a certain point, and NATO and there are 25 other strategic alliances that were all created, most of them soon after World War II, to keep the world safe, to make sure we didn't have another world war. Within that, I believe you got to have constant engagement. That would be my foreign policy,
right.
Not to shrink away and be isolationist the way Trump wants to be, and many of the Democrats. I'd want more trade, fair trade. I'd make sure that workers are fairly compensated, environmental conditions are reflected, climate change is taken into account, but make it fair. But more importantly, recognize that anything that we really want to change that's meaningful, like climate change, we need everyone on Earth to do it, right? If we do methane regulations in Colorado and then in the United States, that's great, but not if China and India don't come along. Right. And within that, and I'm getting back now to all those people that said China on the stage, that China was cheating on their international agreements, no question. China was stealing intellectual property. You can't let a country continue to do that. But a tariff war is the single stupidest tool to use. It's like using a rake to try and hammer a nail. It is just non-effective. The great thing about running for president, one of the great things, is everyone takes your call. And I called the head of the economics department at the University of Chicago, the Milton Friedman Endowed Chair at the University of Chicago, and I said, whoever wins a tariff war, is there an example in the history of the world that we know of where there's been a winner in a tariff war? And he goes, no.
Everybody loses.
Everybody loses every time. So only a fool would do it. The only solution, again, I think, is constant engagement, where you take all your allies and you build these relationships and you begin to squeeze
Pressure,
China in all these different ways, and just say, we're going to have a collaborative approach to the future of this planet, because it's too small now. The planet's too small. We're too closely connected.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. I love it. You got to get on the road for your.
We got to rock and roll
You got to
down
head
here.
over the pass.
We didn't get to go through all my metaphors with bike touring and national politics.
Part two.
You got 24 different candidates. That's a peloton. You guys, as a writer,
told
have
you that
a team
earlier.
of specialists, and we never. Well, I'll have to come back.
Yeah. 60 seconds. Why should you be president?
I think my life experience is uniquely suited at this moment for what the country needs and what, in a funny way, the world needs. So I feel I understand how important a job is to people. I think I understand through our apprenticeships and all the skills-based training we've done in Colorado that this next generation of new professions is going to need all new skills. And I've got a vision for how community colleges and how we can do that. 65% of our kids in this country are never going to get a 4-year college degree. It's been true rough justice for 40 years, and we've done nothing but tell those kids that they're going to be second-class citizens. It's nuts. They've got to be the future. They've got to be the ones. All these robots are going to need someone to operate them, and all the software systems, when they need someone a technician to reboot them. So I think at this moment in time, I have had this strange experience of losing my job, appreciating what work means to people, recreating myself, which, as you know, is not always easy, but we almost all go through it. It wouldn't be a bad thing for a president to talk about that and be able to demonstrate, here's how we're going to deal with climate change. Here's how we're going to get to universal health care coverage and control costs. Here's how we're going to make sure we have the skills ready for the next generation. And I think I'm the only guy that's actually has experience in doing all of those things and could put a team together, hold them accountable, and deliver results.
Governor, thank you. It's been amazing.
What a treat. Always a pleasure.
Enjoy the show tonight.
I will. Thanks.